Hi, everybody. I am Anjanette, and welcome to this week's session of Healing from the Inside Out. And today I have a very special guest with me, Wendy Schofer, and she's a doctor, a pediatrician, an improv comedian, and we could use some laughter today. And she also helps people with their children around diet. So she's the founder of Family Focus. So I'm very interested to talk to her because there is a certain shift when you are in practice. It's a very different way of teaching and educating to really moving to the online space and teaching different audiences. So please help me welcome Wendy Schofer. Hello.
Hello, it is fabulous to be here with you today. I am so looking forward to this. You've already brightened my day with laughter, just getting everything warmed up here.
Well, true story, guys. Wendy thought we were just having a pre-show chat. So Wendy just changed out of her professional clothes into soccer gear because we are all busy people living lives. So I thought it was cute, but I really love who she is and what she stands for and really needed a laugh. So I said, we're going live. So I think what you do is amazing, how you're working with the families. Doctors, nurses, we're taught to really embody the whole family. We don't just treat the person that's ill. We really do treat the whole family, right? Because it is an extension of what's going on with their children, their parents. And it is a very different scenario online to because we as people and educators, we do kind of just tell people this is what you need to do, you know, get on the bandwagon because your health is going to just keep deteriorating. So we're very matter of fact. This is what you need to do. We do educate them. We do direct them to services they need and stuff. But online practice is more about stepping back and letting them figure it out while trying to help them at the same time, helping lead them where they need to go so they have that aha moment, right? So what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's actually something where there's been such a shift that I've been seeing over the past several years. And I mean, of course, it starts with my own practice where, it used to be, okay, I see the problem, let's make a plan. And, in a lot of the conversations, it was around children's weight, around their growth, around eating habits, movement habits. And I was like, all right, cool. I know what to do. Let's write it all down. We'll create a plan. And basically prescriptive medicine, give it to the family. I'll see you back in 3 to 6 months because nothing happens overnight. And then the parents would come back in a couple of months and they're like, yeah, it doesn't work for us. I don't like exercising. My kid doesn't like exercising. Now we just have food fights all the time. I'm finding, candy wrappers under the bed. And it was like this moment of like, okay, I'm prescribing all these things. It's like the answers, all the things I've been trained on. It's not working for them. And I'm also finding it's not working for me. In my own home, I'm having my own, kind of headbutting about how to eat, how to move, electronics, all these things. And so it was kind of like this moment where I was thinking there's something missing.
Yeah.
There's something missing, for the way that I'm communicating in the office, but also in my own home. And so it really just kind of got me thinking about what else is there. And I didn't find the answer right away. It was definitely kind of looking, but over time, it was really discovering a different communication style. And, that's really what I look at with coaching. I think of it as a different language about how it is that we engage with other people, how it is that we can talk about change and habits and motivation, and just even what's really important to me, to my health, to my family. That's completely different from the way that I was trained and the way that I was practicing for, the first 20 years of my career.
Yeah, exactly. And you had said before we went on air, which I thought was really a big piece of it, it's the application. So a lot of times we do send people home, and nurses are a little different than doctors because we do have to do all that stuff with social worker where a part of that where we don't say, okay, go do this diet. We have to go a lot deeper and say, well, are they near a local food store? Do they have, quality food in the area that we could suggest they eat, or do they just have those bodegas on the corner? So we have to kind of look into all that. But even if they do have all of those tools available to them, that's not going to be the push that gets them to go in and really apply it to their own life. They do need that interaction and to understand. And a lot of times, I don't know if you're finding this. I'm finding that a lot of people feel a certain hesitance when it comes to health. They don't think they can achieve a certain type of health. They don't think they deserve a certain kind of health. I meet a lot of people that never in their life have just focused on what's important to them and how to really put themselves first. They said, I wasn't taught that. I don't know how to put myself first. Where do I start with that? Well, how do you take 10 minutes out of your day to do that self-care if you can't put yourself first? And you're worried about all this, and this has no place in that scenario. So I'm hitting a lot of that in the online space, that people just, it's not so much the knowledge of what to eat, and the timing and the frequency of meals. It's really, what is a good meal? They don't have home economics in school anymore. That was like required when I was growing up. Yeah, I'm old. We had to learn how to sew, how to cook, how to make something in wood shop. And today these kids really just don't have to do that. And I think learning that, you gain a sense of pride in that preparation, or if you do that at home as a family. And families just aren't cooking together anymore.
Mm, yeah. I think there's been a lot of things that have really changed over time. But the other part that I'm hearing in that is also kind of not knowing what is possible outside of what it is that I know right now. Kind of that what I heard you saying was something to the effect of folks not knowing like how their health could be different, and kind of like how they could achieve a certain health. And I think that that's so much that we've constructed health and medicine around these experts that have the answers and the knowledge for you. And so it's kind of like we haven't been taught to really like take that ownership, to really understand, well, what is it? What is my health? What is healthy for me? What is it that I want for myself? It's always been, well, you got to address that cholesterol. You got to, that weight, you got to figure that out. You've got to be within this certain range in order to be healthy. And I think that there's a lot of places where it's kind of like we don't know what to do. We're looking for the expert guidance and then finding that it doesn't fit our lives.
Mm, big
It
part of
doesn't
it.
it doesn't fit. Like, I can even talk about, moving 150 minutes per week. And then people look at me like, how the heck am I going to do that? I'm busy. I'm juggling. I've got, my kids and my job and all these different things. How the heck do I fit that in? And so that's that part about the education meets the application of, okay, yes, there can be guidelines, but how does that fit your life? And it may not be like fitting that 150 minutes a week into your life, but what is possible for you?
Then
How is
maybe
it?
it's that 10 minutes a day, that walk, that stretch, even. So there's such a higher propensity for disease processes and obesity just sitting at your desk all day. And today, everybody's online. Everybody's at a desk doing that. So they're placing themselves at risk, and maybe starting with that piece about something small, you know, because I mean, that's kind of what I teach in my nutrition. When I first came online, it was during COVID. I was on the front lines, and I was teaching about weight loss, and people kept waiting for me to say, okay, you have to run these miles and you have to do this. And it was all about reducing that stress, about running those miles and doing that, starting where you're at now. If you can only walk 2 blocks, when I started on my journey, I couldn't touch my toes. So
Mm,
if I stopped there, I would have never known that I could reach those toes. And I just did a little bit every day, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. So you do really have to adjust, because I'm so sick and tired of those generic diets that are out there promising, that everybody, this is going to heal everybody, because everybody is different. You and I both know that two people can present with the same disease and have totally different symptoms and present in a different way, right? So, but people don't buy into that because they do have those years of thinking they needed to go to an expert. So now it comes down to having so much information out there now, how to decipher what can really work for me. Well, I can't do all that, but maybe I can do some of this, and doing that application, going home and doing the follow through is
mhm.
what a lot of people are struggling with, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's so much truth in that that it's kind of like there's so much out there that I don't know, and then there's just so much overwhelming information. I don't know how to, sort through what works for me. It's kind of like it goes back and forth for
Hmm.
the individual trying to sort out like what does all of this wealth of information mean for me? But I think that that's really a role for us in both in medicine, but also in so many different, you know, healing arts and caregiving. Like it's really about connecting with humans and really
Yeah.
just trying to figure out, well, what is it that you need? And, it's not me coming in, as the doctor, as the coach, as the other person and saying, "Oh, I know what you need," but like really opening up that conversation to be able to connect with another person, ask them what they need, and then help them, create that village, the resources to be able to connect them with what it is that they see that they need for their health, for their stress relief, for their family, whatever it may be. I just think it's such a different type of conversation that we can have, and it completely changes everything. It's really building such a connection with the other human in the room. I just wrote an article this week talking about the other, human in the room, meaning the doctor. But it actually goes both ways. Like we're just humans. We're just humans that are trying to connect and trying to do better and trying to understand without even necessarily having to do better. Like just to be able to understand each other, what's important, what do I need? And man, I think that's that's so much of our experience right now is things are shifting in medicine because it's not just in the online space. I'm so proud to say that these types of conversations are coming into the medical office, and it is well overdue. And
I agree. I agree.
so changing things.
It used to drive me crazy. My mother would go to the doctor and come home more confused than when she left. And she would ask me, and I would say, "Well, didn't you were just at the doctor's? Didn't you ask him any of these questions?" She said, "You're a nurse." I said, "But I'm not a doctor. He's the one that needs to give you that information. I'm not looking at your chart. He is."
Yeah.
She said, "Well, he's so busy." I said, "Well, Ma, not for nothing. I don't think he is. I think this is exactly what he needs you to ask him." Or they go to the doctor with half the information. They'll go
Mm,
to the doctor. So I try and encourage people that when they go into these doctors, that they are just human and they can only help you if you really tell them what's wrong. So if you have 6 symptoms and you only mention one, the one that's bothering you the most, he's not going to be able to piece that puzzle together because your body is a puzzle, you have to find where the problem started and able to reverse the process. So if he only has one little piece of that puzzle, he may be off. And maybe that's why you're not getting that result because he didn't have the full picture,
mm,
and next time when you go back and you say, "Oh, did I mention I this, and this," you might get that answer. So you do have to realize that we're all human, and everybody learns different. Everybody has a, different bedside manner. I was at a dentist yesterday having massive dental work in my mouth, and I'll tell you the things you never want to hear your dentist say. Oh, I think it's over here. I said, excuse me, you think? So, and I'm saying to myself, oh, good thing you have tough gums as he's cutting through them. And it's like, how is that good? This just makes it more painful from where I'm sitting, right? So, and I said to him, I said, I know you mean well. I said, but I also know you're young and that this is going to come as you do this longer. I said, but if you think hiding that needle down here somehow deters me from knowing it's coming, I said, it really doesn't. I said, we all know it's coming, so, but he's gotten better. Sometimes I felt like I had 10 people in my mouth, but it's only through those conversations that you tell him, listen, this, I need to breathe. There's a time for that, and it's now. That you can really grow, and because he's a new dentist. My old dentist retired. So it's been a process of getting to know his pet peeves and how he works and my pet peeves and getting them to mesh.
Yeah. Oh, that's so it's so powerful that you spoke up for what you were hearing and seeing and experiencing to let him know. I mean, I think that's a big part of, you know, for those of us on, I'm going to say, wearing my doctor hat to know, okay, this didn't work with this patient. Like this isn't being received the way I intended it. Like that is so critical that we all as patients speak up about our experience. Because I mean, that's for one thing, to be able to say, no, this isn't cool. This isn't right for me. It's a little bit too crowded in there, whatever, whatever that is. But also for the physician, the dentist, whoever it is, to also be able to receive that input, that feedback about what's working or not working. And because we're all learning too. Again, we're all humans. It's not like we just come out of whatever school and it's like, all right, that's it. I know all about, how to do this. We're trying to figure out how to be able to communicate and finesse, different treatment plans and everything too. So I just think that's really amazing that you're speaking up and saying, no, that didn't work so well.
No, it definitely
That
didn't work
didn't
so well.
work so well here. Like, please keep doing that. Like, that's why I want to like identify that we need more of that because that's not complaining. That's not, being critical. It's actually just saying, hey, you know what? That's not working here. Let's keep working on that together. Let's keep on seeing how we can shift this to make it something that works for me and for you.
Well, it's a funny story, actually. Well, I mean, it depends on how you take it. But he always tries to come at me with a needle. I won't take needles. And so I do suffer through those treatments. I had a car accident when I was a child. I got hit by a drunk driver. I was on a sidewalk, massive brain trauma, broke my back, but I had over 5,000 stitches in my head. So they have to give you the Novocaine to sew your head up. And I couldn't lift my head, and it was like an all night thing. And I haven't been able to get past that numbness. I know it sounds weird, but I don't like anything numb on my face at all. I don't like nothing around my face. No, you're not giving me that Novocaine. It's gonna hurt good. I want to feel it. And he thinks I'm crazy. So every once in a while, he forgets and he has that needle down here. And I said, do you forget who you're talking about? You think I don't see that needle? So, because it's not coming over here. And the needles don't bother me. You can give them to me anywhere in my body, just not in my face, not in my mouth. And I've had stitches all over my face. But after that experience and feeling numb for so long,
Yeah.
you know, I remember the doctor saying a little longer, a little longer, a little longer. I was hours getting sewn up, and it was traumatizing to say the least. So my dentist, even sitting in the dentist chair, I'm like this. It's like I cannot, because I know he's coming in my mouth. And the first day I met him, I said, I want to tell you about a story, something that happened to me as a child. I said, so I just want to let you know in advance when I kick you, it's not intentional. It's just letting you know I've had enough. Back away from my mouth. So he started laughing. And because he is who he is, he was very accepting of that. And he does take that time and go slow because we had that conversation. So, and he'll say to me, do you need me to stop? Yes, 5 minutes. So,
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah. Oh, it just being able to speak up, and let him know what you need and to have
hmm.
that being received.
Well, it's nice that he is receiving of that. I think it makes it easier to tell people what you want and what you need when it's received warmly. And when
Mm-hmm.
it's not, that's not always the case.
Yeah.
I've gone to doctors that weren't so nice and they didn't receive me so warmly. I remember I have a thyroid disease. I've had it my whole life. After that, they told me it went away, and I said, no, it didn't. Everything's still going on in there. I can feel it. But I was struggling to get pregnant and I went to the doctor and I said, I have a thyroid condition and I'm having difficulty conceiving. And I think, maybe there's a problem with the thyroid and everybody wants to blame the thyroid. So he was, I said, excuse me. Oh my God. He said, thyroid has nothing to do with it. And he got angry at me like I was accosting him. And I said, what do you mean it has nothing to do with it? It has everything to do with it. So
Mm.
by this time, I had been in nursing and I went home and I was so angry at the way that he treated me that I started emailing, like faxing him paperwork about how the thyroid is. And I told him, nurses have to go back to these courses all the time, and if you don't like what you're doing, stop it, you know. He told me that well, if I don't even want to get into that because this is really about you, but just so it's not always received warmly, and that can really deter people from going because it was probably my experience with him that stopped me from going for a long time and just really learning how to treat myself until I couldn't. Right. So, you know, I'm glad that you're working. So from what I gathered, reading your, information on you, you work with the families doing behaviors and really changing those habits and that idea of food because people do have a concept of food and see it in a negative light.
Mm.
Not everybody um has a great relationship with food. So
Yeah.
for children especially, it's so important that they learn to listen to those little bodies and say, okay, I'm hungry, right? So because these behaviors are going to amplify as they get older when they're not listening to that hunger quotient and they're just eating for the sake of eating.
Mm.
This is problems that later develop. So how do you work with the parents with that? Do you teach them as well? Do you meet in a family setting?
Yeah. So, with the work that I do, and this is primarily work that I do outside of the office because I really think it's about meeting with families where they are and that they don't have to come into the medical office in order to be able to have these types of conversations. Again, health is really at home. So, a lot of my sessions with folks are in the online setting because that way we can do it on their terms. It's primarily working with the parents to be able to understand the patterns that they are seeing in their home. And so, as you were talking about how, like, the doctor didn't have all the clues or didn't have all the information, well, they didn't have enough information to really be able to see the patterns. And I think that that's what's so important for us to be able to get curious about, well, what is it that I see in my household? What is it that I notice for myself? And I always work with parents to first start with an understanding about ourselves. Like, our relationship with food, our relationship with our bodies, because we can't just come in and tell our kids what to do without creating pushback and, kind of fighting. We have to understand, well, how is this working for myself first? And then I can start seeing how it's working for my child. We weren't taught about how to have a relationship with our food, with our bodies. We weren't really taught much of anything about, relationships with others either. And so
Certainly
now,
not.
yeah, as we're, trying to help our kids, there's so much that helping our kids just looks like telling them what to do. And I gotta
And
tell
then
you,
that resisting comes in because you know, nobody wants to be told what to do. And
oh, heck no, I sure don't. You tell me what to
no,
do, I'm gonna
no.
tell you where to go. Yeah,
So, and I'm
absolutely.
kind of the same. So when you come from that place of you need to do this because I'm the parent, instead of coming from a place of love and really mimicking, because we are a reflection of our environments. That whole nature nurture, it's half and half, you know. So if we don't see our parents taking care of themselves and having that good relationship with food, grabbing an apple instead of a cookie, then that's what we see, and we start to feel like that's the norm because that's what we see every day in our house. So if it's okay for mommy, why isn't it okay for me? So
Mm,
it is teaching the parents, that they do have to kind of mimic that behavior. If you want your child to communicate with you, then you have to open those lines of communication. Share your day with your child. Tell your child that you had a bad day and maybe you're not feeling good. That's how, so that they know that mommies have bad days too. It's not just you, and it's okay to share that, because I think from the time we're very young, and I know you can identify with this, we're told to look for things outside of our body all the time. We're told that we're not enough because we have to go to school to be better. We have to make more money to get ahead. There's always something else that we need, and none of it is centered on taking care of yourself, being who you are, being kind to people, because if you want kindness, you put kindness out. So we're not taught any of those things, like you said. And there's a lot of self-doubt that I hear in a lot of my clients. There's a lot of limiting beliefs, they're calling it, where people just don't feel like they are enough by themselves. So they
mm,
keep looking to other people. So I was on a call earlier today, and she's a health practitioner as well, and she teaches people how to love themselves and heal themselves. And I said, wow, that's a job, right? But I think that's what all practitioners are really trying to do. People are really trying to do. Parents are trying to do, is to get us to see that piece where we matter. Would you think?
I think that there's so much that we were just taught, so many messages about, you know, what it needs to look like, what we need to act like, how it needs to be. And I think that it's really something, again, like this kind of like the messages about what we need to do to be successful, to say that we're good, to say that we're healthy. And it's never really connecting with what it is that we are actually experiencing. And, so much of the work that I do right now, I'm so grateful that they're teaching so much social and emotional learning in the schools right now. It's fabulous. They're bringing that in and they're teaching the children about emotions, but then the kids are going home. And there's this disconnect because we as parents were never taught about, kind of checking in with your body. What's your body experiencing right now? What are you feeling? Whether we're talking about hunger or emotions, like we weren't taught about that.
No,
There wasn't time for it. This isn't the place. And so much of the work that I do, especially around emotions, is like it's like trying to get parents, like giving them the opportunity to catch up with this education that their kids are getting, but also to be able to translate it. Like they're talking about emotions all the time. What the heck is that? I was never, I was always told not to do that. There's no time for this. And I think that no time for this thing is another big part because, so much of our life, the stress in our lives is around, we got to do this. There's no time for that. The go, go, go. And the stress is something that we just take with us
Mm,
everywhere. It's built into our food choices. It's built into, how we move our bodies or don't have time for that. It's how, our sleeping patterns, like where we think that there's so much that we have to keep on doing in order to say that we are productive, successful, getting stuff done,
mm,
yet it's all that external. And so I see that as so much of the stress. And so then as we hear about our kids' weight and we see their eating habits, that just becomes one more thing that's on
mm,
parents' plate, like one more thing that they are stressing about and thinking, well, if I can just fix this, I'll feel better. If I can just get this done, I'll feel better. And I think that's the thing that we really get to call out right now, like that's actually the lie that we've been taught that, if we can just change all these things, we can feel better. But I think it's really starting that change right here by, coming back to what is it that I want? What is it even that I'm feeling in the first place? What is my experience? I mean, I think that's ultimately what self-care comes back to. It's not even what we're doing for ourselves. It's about actually just checking in.
saying,
What
are you
am I
okay?
experiencing right now?
What do I feel? How do I feel?
Yeah.
And being okay with how you feel, and identifying it, saying, am I angry? Am I hurt? Am I, because it's easier to not push it under the rug if we give it a name, right? So
Mm, yeah.
yeah. So because but sometimes growing up, what happens in our home stayed in our home. So I kind of always felt like I was lying by omission because we weren't allowed to tell anybody what happens in our home. So
Hmm.
I felt like there was so much that I couldn't share. And as I got older, it became harder to share because I didn't know what was okay to share and what wasn't okay to share. And that was just my experience. So I had to really work on that part of me and say, what's the worst that could happen if I share? If I said I care or I love you, or so, basic things like that. I mean, stymied me for years. Like I always felt detached, and not necessarily by choice, but because I felt like that was pushed on me growing up. And then when I tried to be comfortable in situations with like affection or people that showed a lot of emotion, I was like, whoa, what is this? I don't know what this is, but I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable. So I I had to learn to be comfortable with that stuff, or be okay with being uncomfortable because the outcome or what it produced might be worthwhile, right?
Oh, that's
But
such a beautiful example where it's like there was this certain pattern that you knew. This is the way I grew up. This is the way that we did it. And then when I started looking at a different kind, it was so uncomfortable for me. That's what I'm hearing, like that new pattern, like it was uncomfortable. And, thinking about that through habits and patterns, like that's just the language that I use to kind of try to not make it something about what it is that's so often we try to make it like, well, I'm uncomfortable, but there must be something wrong with me, or there must be something wrong in general. And it's like, oh no, it's just something that's new. This isn't something that you've practiced. This is just something that it's a different experience. And of course it's uncomfortable. Oh, we talk about that so often because everybody's like, oh, well, I'm uncomfortable with this. I don't know that I want to do it again. I'm like, okay, you're uncomfortable because it's new. it's a new pattern. You're not used to this, to this. And we can talk about habits and all of that, but that's fascinating to hear how you walk through that example. It's beautiful.
You're just being nice. It gave me a lot, it just gave me a lot of trouble. I think as you do inner work, and sometimes it's painful to look at. I had a lot of trauma and past experiences, that most people might not make it through. I think everybody has the potential to, but they might have stayed in that pain, and it was ruining me, you know.
Mhm.
And I knew it was, and I said, I have to learn to forgive this, no matter how much it hurts, because if I don't, it might be the death of me, because what quality of life am I really living? I didn't trust. There was so many other things that were part of it. So you kind of, I think you come to certain places in your life and learn certain things when you need to. You're not always ready. If I would have attempted to do that inner work 10 years before, probably would have laughed at myself and said, "Who you kidding? This ain't happening." And just went on to something else. But I was in a place where I hit that wall, and there was no going further until I dealt with what was right there. You know, um, so, I mean, you learn when you have to, you grow when you have to, but because I did that, I can see those behaviors because they do still come up. I see them in other people. There's still triggers in my now life. Certain things people will say or do will trigger those past experiences. And I have to remember that I'm not my past, and that that's not the situation. It's just the same words or the same. So I kind of go through all that in my head so that I don't have to live in that anxiety or that sense. This isn't the same situation. Let it go. It's not happening. Like, so I kind of do that EFT, but internally, like in my heart. Whatever works. Did I lose you?
Oh no, I'm here. I'm here. I was just thinking that was just a beautiful practice that you're describing.
I mean, there's so many different modalities out there today. I don't think it's ever been a better time to really be in healthcare or be part of a healing practice, because there's so many different modalities and everybody learns different. You know that you could work with the same child, and today he's not receptive to something you're doing, and tomorrow, just based on something that he's feeling that day, might be more receptive, or maybe because it's not so new. So to be able to have so many to be able to offer in different ways, I think is a really, it's not just beneficial, but I think it gives more hope because people don't feel like they're stuck in that box when you tell them, if you say here's this diet and they say, oh, that's not going to work for me, I'm lactose intolerant, this, you could say, oh, don't worry about it, let's design one for you.
Yeah, yeah,
Or I don't like this whole EFT stuff or this tapping, right? Well, don't worry about it, because we could do yoga or meditation.
yeah.
So we're in a great time to really make those connections and offer that help that we didn't always have available to us.
I think part of it is also opening up the conversation about so many different types of modalities that are available. Where, like in my early training, it was very much like, no, this is the Western medicine approach. Like you have to follow this evidence base. And I mean, there's a reason why we look for evidence-based medicine. We want to know that things are effective, but we were only kind of looking within a certain within a certain area for the evidence. And I think that we've really been expanding that to be able to incorporate and bring in different modalities from other healing arts. And that's something that's really expanded over, I don't know, maybe the last 10 to 15 years that I've been seeing it really accelerating, but even more so more recently with like you're talking about, like bringing in more of, like EFT, talking about hypnosis and the
Mm.
power of hypnosis. Of course, looking to yoga and meditation, which kind of always was like kind of put on an ancillary side. Like, yeah, okay, you can go and do yoga and meditation, but really bringing that in and incorporating that as a part of, the options. I'm trying to not say treatment plans, but kind of like the options that you can look at to say, okay, well, what do you want to experiment with? What is it that is possible for you to just try, see how it works, see what it offers to you? And I think that it's both on the side of the healthcare practitioners as well as the patients that are just so much more aware that there's more tools out there that we can use, and maybe even just say we can sample, we can see. Let's experiment. I love experimentation because it's kind of like there's no pressure. Let's just see what happens with this. See if I want to try it again. See if I want to, try on something else.
You don't know till you try. I was talking to someone, I've been talking to a lot of health people recently doing the show, and she does hypnosis, like you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And I said that I had trouble being where I am. And she said, really? I said, yeah. I said, I'm okay with where I'm at. I said, but my mind is even going. So even though I appear to be very relaxed, I've never been able to totally shut down my mind. I've
Mm,
tried meditation, I do yoga. So, I mean, I do meditation, I can do the breath, I can focus on stuff like that. But I mean, totally shut my mind down. I always have to bring myself back, always.
mhm,
Because my mind is always going a million miles a minute. And even as a child, I think they thought I had ADHD, but it turned out it was something. It's just my thought, right? But I couldn't focus my attention because I was always so far ahead of where I was.
mhm,
In school, it was easy and all those things. But today, but what she told me to do was just to stop looking at what I'm looking at, and really delve into, in not that plant, but maybe that chlorophyll that's working in it, and stuff like that. And because of the way she said it, and maybe because I love plants, I think I was more open
mm,
to because I was sharing with her something that I struggle with, and she said, "Well, what I'm hearing is that you have difficulty being where you are." And I said, "Well, even though I'm here now, I got 50 things going in the background." I said, "So I can be where I am, but there's always something else working." And I said, "I don't know how to shut that down where I could just not plan so far ahead, and just say, okay, today this is all I have to do. Just relax, get through that day, and be okay right where I am."
mhm.
So she was talking about the hypnosis. I said, you might be. So I told everybody on the air, you're going to be hearing from me really soon. So because the way she described what she did, and how she isolated where the trouble was, because she said it was connected to past traumas, and that you might not even be aware of why you're like distracted, why you don't let yourself settle. Maybe something you're holding on to something, and that's your way of avoidance. So I thought it was fascinating, but the fact that just by telling people and having those conversations, they might spark, hey, maybe this is your real problem,
Mm,
or have you tried this? And that gives you those other options,
mhm.
right? And maybe one day I'll have nothing to do. Nothing to do. I could just relax. We hope.
Oh, I love it. I think it's really one of those things, like you said, like what is possible? Like just even saying, I wonder what would happen for me. Oh my God, what would that be like if I had nothing to do? Nothing. I don't know.
My husband, this is a true story. My husband is very controlling around the environment, the things that he gets preoccupied with when we're driving, and always commenting and stuff. And I remember asking him one day how it felt.
Mm.
And he said, what? I said, being the servant of God. I said, because, somehow when you're sleeping, he figures all these things out without you. So why are you stressing over it? Leave it alone. And he was laughing, but I see that in me. So I do the same thing. So I think we're attracted to people similar to us because I do the same thing. I nitpick around little stuff. And um I think we all have the capacity to do that. Or maybe it's just me. But sometimes the silliest things in my environment bother me. And if I can't relax, like even working in an environment, I need it to be a certain way. So I have that peace in that environment that I'm working. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Yeah. So creating that peace for yourself there.
Yeah. But so, I mean, and that comes from, I'm sure some bad habits that I had in the past, and I let go of them and creating new habits and patterns.
Mhm.
When I was on that weight loss journey, I was that big sugar girl,
Mhm.
and eliminating it from my house was absolutely necessary. I
Mm.
can't tell you how many Fiber One bars I brought into my home because some of them tasted like brownies or lemon bars. And I said, if a little fiber is good, a lot is even better. So
Oh my
you,
goodness.
but it was baby steps, right? And I said, eventually I'll get off the Fiber One, and I did. But so when you work with people, you probably hear a lot of odd stories in your practice that um and I don't mean that in a bad way because certainly we don't judge people, but you hear some stories that kind of make you scratch your head sometimes, right? Because you can see that solution and it they probably can too, but they're so stuck in that behavior or that pattern that they can't. So you must hear some pretty funny things. Maybe that's why you've gone into improv comedy.
I don't know. I think I've got some pretty funny things that people would be like, what are you doing? I mean, I think the funniness that I'm hearing is pretty much just like when we were like, I don't understand that. That's not what I do. That's not the way I see it. And so it's actually funny because improv has taught me so much more about that, where it's really looking at the different perspectives that each character is bringing into a scene and kind of getting curious about my partner. So the first rule of improv is always make your partner look good. Like you just got to make your partner look good. And so much of that is trying to figure out, well, what is my partner's motivation? What is my motivation as a character in this scene? But what's going on for them? How is it that we have two different perspectives and we can share that as a part of this scene? One of the biggest things that I was taught is that arguments are awful on stage. Like when you have conflict, like it just doesn't work. And so my mentor taught me that it's not about banging your heads and it's in a as a part of a conflict, but just trying to share, well, it's two people that are looking at the world through different views. They have different worldviews. So, how can you explore what this person is seeing in their worldview and how this person is, seeing without butting heads, but just more of like, you know, in my words, getting curious about it. What is it that we're seeing? And when I heard that, I was like, oh, I'm going to take this to the medical office. Like, this is that really helps me see like it's not like when maybe I have a treatment recommendation and a family is like, yeah, no, that doesn't work for us. Well, not looking at that as a conflict, but more of an opportunity to be able to maybe see more about what their worldview is.
Hmm.
What's their perspective? What is it that they're perhaps concerned about? That I just haven't really kind of teased that out so far. And all I hear is that's a no. We don't want to do that. Well, it doesn't have to be a conflict, which is the way I was always taught. Well, you just have to like convince them. You have
I
to convince
know.
of your view. And I'm like, no, that doesn't work either, because again, it's just more friction. let me just see what else is there. And so much of it comes back to, again, emotions.
Mm.
What is it they're afraid of? What is it that they're remembering a past experience that they just don't want to repeat? And so I think that that's just the biggest thing. I could look at it as funny situations. I guess I look at it as more of things that I just get to get more curious about understanding the other human in the room, the other humans when I'm blessed to have a whole bunch of them in the room with me.
I think, but I think you described that beautifully. You know, I find humor in a lot of things that I encounter in health, and it might not be anything that an individual's doing. It might just be the situation, like looking back on things that have happened now, and when we laugh. I mean, I remember two aides running down the hall, and when I looked at them, I saw the Flintstones with their little feet running, and I was just hysterical, and they were doing exactly what they needed to do. But it was so comical to watch. And the doctor and I sat there and we laughed. He said, "Wow." He said, you've done a good job with those." I said, "Not me. It's them. They're the ones running down the hall." And it was something minor. There was no emergency for us to
Yeah.
run to. But to see these two that so determined and working together as a team and flying down that hall with this huge Jerry chair, it was so comical. I can't even tell you. But you have to find, I think when you work in health and that you see a lot of sadness, you see a lot of great things, but you see a lot of sadness. I think you got to find those moments
Yeah.
where you can experience that laughter. And when they came back down the hall, we were still hysterical. I mean, belly roll laughter. And they didn't understand what was so funny. I said, if you could just see the looks on your faces and those little feet scurrying down the hall, it was too funny. So I would like to know how people go to get in touch with you. So what if people were interested in doing, because you do the family focus, right? So do you have an age limit because you do pediatrics? Do you have an age limit because you do work with parents as well? So is there like a cutoff age for you?
I'm just going to say no, that there's no
Okay.
cutoff. So what I do with Family in Focus is it's working with parents and kind of understanding more about what they're experiencing, what their family's experiencing. And the vast majority of the time, I work exclusively with the parents. There are some occasional times that I will work directly with teenagers as well. But I really see that the parents have the opportunity to be able to kind of look at the family from a different perspective. And I just contrast this with my traditional role that I had in the medical office, where when we look at one child at a time and make it a treatment type of plan with one child, there's so much that can be misinterpreted, misunderstood as far as the
Mm,
child taking that on as there's something wrong with me. And
correct.
that's where shame is coming in here. We're talking about my weight. There's something wrong with it. We got to change it. I need to change. There's something wrong. And so that shame is uh, probably one of the biggest things that's just getting in the way of the health that we want to have. It's really something that is just such an emotional blockade. And so I really look at that opportunity of working with parents to understand what their kids are experiencing, as well as being able to create whole family change without isolating one child, really looking at what are the patterns, what are the habits that we want to create for the whole family and share with everybody at every age, at every weight. And so that's where the role of the parent I really see as a really critical one, as well as just understanding where we're coming from because we have our own experiences. So, what that looks like is I have my Family in Focus program, which is an 8 week long community, gathering of parents, because that's the other big thing, recognizing that we're not alone in these struggles. We're working together, we're creating the village of support to be able to say, I see you, I'm experiencing that too. you're not alone. Like those types of supports are so valuable for parents that are in the program. And so we work together over the course of the 8 weeks in groups. We also have individual sessions as well to really be able to, learn. We have, 8 key lessons that we go through, and then we apply them to your unique family, to your unique life. And so I think that that's really that application, like really seeing how does this fit for you and your family? And that's where the magic really happens. You can come on over to my website, wendyschofermd.com, find out all about, the latest and greatest with the openings for the next program, for the next group program. I also do one-on-one. You can find out about my podcast, my free mini courses. There's a wealth of information right there at the website.
I love that. If you could share one thing that you think the audience would benefit from the most after, because we talked about so many different things, and I'm a little scatterbug. I go all over the place. Um, what would be something that you think if a family was in crisis or needed that help, what do you think would be something you could share with them?
I can tell you, I've loved this conversation because this is the way that it works for me. Like I love just kind of, I say geeking out or riffing on things. So this is what we've been doing today. I think that, I mean, more than anything, I think the message that I want to put out there is that it's not about your child's weight. It's not about your child's weight. Like there's so much that we keep on hearing that, as parents that we need to monitor and manage and control and keep an eye on. And so we're judging our success as a family, as parents, based off of the scale, based off of our kids' size. And that's like the tip of the iceberg. And that's where we really get to understand like what is actually going on, like what is contributing to weight, but also what else is there? Like your child is so much more than their weight. Each and every one of us is so much more than our physical bodies, our size, our weight. And so that's something that we're really shifting that conversation to look at like, who is this child in front of you? What is it that they need right now? Not need to do, not need to do, but
Big
what is it
difference.
they need right now? And so I think that that's the type of question that we need to ask in the medical office. I think that that's the type of question that we can ask each and every day as parents, as our kids are having hard days. What is it that they need right now? Ugh, I mean, I think that's like parenting, the 101 of parenting that I wish I had learned way back when. Like that's all I need to ask. What does my child need right now? We're taught that, when they're like little infants, when they're babies, okay, are they hungry? Are they tired? Are they dirty? What is it? You know what? It still applies for tantruming, toddlers, for school age kids. They're trying to figure out, the
Navigating
relationships,
life. Yeah,
communication. And for teenagers, they still have needs too. What is it that my child needs right now? Gosh, we can keep on asking that question. Totally changes the game.
I love that. We're going to close on that note. I want to thank everybody for coming in. And again, you can reach her at her website, and there will be links on some of the videos. Okay. So I want to thank you so much for being such a great audience, and have a great night.